there are so many reasons to set up your own little community thing. If anybody's listening and on the verge and doesn't have the confidence right now, I hope you listen to this and are like, following this host's footsteps here, follow in mine. It's set something up for yourself. It keeps rewarding you time after time. Do you know what I mean?
This is All About the Song.
Welcome to the 118th episode of All About the Song. I am your host, Michael McDonnell, and thank you for joining us. On the podcast today, we have Alex Southey, who is a Toronto singer-songwriter originally from British Columbia. On this episode, we were talking to Alex about his single, On the Dance Floor, which had just come out when we recorded this a couple months ago from the album, You're Just a Body to Me. Since then, Alex has recorded some new music. A new single called Rosie comes out in 2 days on January 14th. This is out on January 12th. And he has another full-length album out on February 5th. Talk about someone that is taking a pandemic to, he's using his time wisely, let's put it like that. The Sounds Like Songs Network, which is what this podcast is on YouTube as a YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe, hit the notification button, and leave us a comment. It has been an absolute roller coaster doing a podcast on video throughout a pandemic. We were so lucky to have the opportunity to make this wild jump. But I would like to thank the team for being so wonderful, figuring out how we're going to do these podcasts at home. We are just trying everything and figuring out the best ways and the most optimal ways to bring you the podcasts. So thanks for sticking with us, and the best is yet to come. Based on the email address, and I will say, because I did a little follow-up with Alex talking about what he is currently up to in the outro. I usually say this then, but if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions for a guest you'd like to hear on an episode, send us an email, allaboutthesongpodcast@gmail.com. I'm really excited to tell you that going through the inbox today, we've got some amazing guests coming up. So do yourselves a favor and check them out. And for past episodes, our website is www.allaboutthesongpodcast.com. There have been some excellent guests. I like every single one of them, but there are over 100 episodes. So if you're bored at home, be sure to tune into some podcasts and get that musical itch, that thing you used to get satisfied by going to a live show. I hope we can suffice until we're able to do that again. I'd also like to mention Kadima, which is a band that I perform in alongside Tal Weisman, who does the sister podcast on the Sounds Like Songs network called Everything But the Song, are performing on January 20th at the Rose Theatre in Brampton. This is a ticketed event. It is free, but I will leave the links in the description to check out that performance. Kadima will be playing live. It is unfortunately our second show. Our first show happened mere weeks before the first lockdown. So we are chomping at the bit to play live. Even if we're all surrounded in plexiglass when we do, it will satisfy that craving of live music. So do yourselves a favor and check that out when it happens. And now a quick word from our friends and sponsors. Today's episode is brought to you by Hailed, which is a coffee shop located at Yonge and Gerrard in the downtown Toronto area. If you are a coffee drinker, you must try Hailed. They are ranked consistently among the top 10 coffee houses in Toronto. Visit the store and support local Toronto-based businesses. Be sure to place your order at www.hailed.ca. This episode is also brought to you by Flickly. Thank you, Richard Atkin, friend of the podcast. We really appreciate your support for the Canadian music scene. Rich is the founder and CEO of Flickly, a premier video animation studio, working with large brands and enterprises across the globe. Learn more about Rich and his work at Flickly by going to the website flickly.com, FLIKLI.com, and connect with Richard Atkin on LinkedIn. So here we are, episode 118 of All About the Song. Here is Alex Southey. Alex, Thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the new song. How does it feel to have on the dance floor out in the world?
It feels very good. It's nice. I was pretty amped for it once I got the arrangement on it. That was, when it ties it all together, because otherwise it's a fairly bare song. So that was really exciting.
What's really nice about your music, going through your whole catalog, and I got to ask you about a timeline on some stuff, because it looks like you released an album in 2020 and now are putting out an album for 2021, but you started the single cycle.
Yes, that's true. Can I pause for 1 second and say, right now you look so much like Father John Misty. You must hear that from other people.
I've never heard that.
I can't believe you've never heard that.
I get Shaun White a lot. I get a lot of people. It might just be the angle and the headphones, but
maybe, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's pretty funny. Anyway, yeah. So the timeline essentially is I made my second album, which is the one that you're referencing. It's called You're Not Just a Body to Me. I made it in fall 2019.
Okay.
And then was kind of beginning the single cycle before I'd even finished mastering that album. It was a mess, basically, releasing it. I didn't have a plan. Only this time around am I using PR. But anyway, I put that out. I toured it and put it out in January 30th of this year, 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago. That's like pre-Australia fires. And I toured that for a little bit, for 2 months, and for charity. It all went to CAMH, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health, because that was like a big part of the record and what was behind it and how I was feeling and that kind of thing. I just wanted to make some sort of a difference. And then simultaneously, I'm just kind of always writing. And so I had the beginnings of this album going into the summer. And once quarantine hit, I mean, what else am I doing, right?
Yeah,
it's just this or watch classic shows like The Sopranos or something.
Well, there's only so much you can kind of just sit there and watch.
Exactly. I don't know what I like. Yeah, this is the time that all musicians have been asking for or silently hoping for. Like, oh, I wish I get this day off of work so that I can work more on music. And I'm like, I know we all have this general existential threat hanging over us now, which is not awesome, but you have a bunch of free time now if you are fortunate enough, just the few of us who are fortunate enough to work from home and that kind of thing. So
well, it was interesting because I found at the beginning of this pandemic and the lockdown, there was a bit of I felt like fans were kind of thinking my favorite artist is going to release like a double album in 6 months. Mm-hmm. A lot of people were kind of saying like, this is not the conducive environment to be inspired. But now that it's gone on for so long, I'm kind of thinking, and I've seen and noticed a lot of artists saying like, okay, I'm done just sitting here. Like, I'll just drum up some inspiration from something in myself and let's go. Let's put something out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of feel like if you... So whatever, so take me, for example. I work as an email marketing specialist, which is what I told you before this. Mm-hmm. And I play music, but I feel like once you decide to just fully go, I am a musician, then I think, personally for me, I can't go by that classic thing of where the artist needs his muse and it needs to come at the right time and whatever. Like, it should be more like a day job almost, I think. That's what leads to putting out nearly 2 albums in a year, I guess. But
I'm sure that there are some of those songs that you recorded that you feel are like the muse tickling your shoulder or whatever.
for sure.
But those are also those unbelievable moments that all that hard work and pushing through allowed you to maybe get a song out from, beginning, middle, end in 30 seconds. Like, just sometimes they write themselves, but most of the time they don't.
For sure. I totally agree. It's more like, I'm not knocking the muse thing. That also exists. I'm just saying they coexist. It's not one or the other, in my opinion. Well, the muse is what keeps it going. Yeah, exactly. The muse is sort of the actual drug, and then the rest of it is just the reminder of it. Yeah. Almost, or searching. You're right. And it's really difficult to sometimes find that feeling to get up and just push. Mm-hmm. And it can sometimes be very difficult until you have that tangible song and you can listen to it and go, wow, I pushed through this one and it was really worth it. Definitely. I agree. And the other thing is, like, I don't know. I feel like when people who don't write music think like, oh, what is songwriting like? They imagine whatever. They imagine the Beatles sitting there being like, should it be an A or actually should it be a B7 or blah, 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 which I'm sure did happen. But writing music is as much just kind of having it subconsciously enter your head and rattle around and whatever. I cannot number the amount of songs that I finished by just like walking around listening to a voice memo of a totally unfinished version of the song. And then my brain just kind of filled in where I want, arrangement melody or whatever. It's such a magical feeling when all of a sudden you crack that code. It is. It's pretty weird. Sorry, go ahead. No, it's very weird. I'm working on a song that I kind of shelved like 6 years ago, and I haven't done it yet, but I just now know from experience that if you keep massaging this, it's going to open up and you're going to find that missing word that connects everything together and it'll be done. I agree. Massaging it is a really good way to put it. I think it is this kind of nuanced thing of like, you don't need to put too much pressure on it, but you should just constantly sort of turn it over in your fingers and how does it feel singing it a different way or at a different rhythm, or like there are all these tricks that you can use to kind of come at it from another perspective to help you finish it. Yeah, and my big thing is not to get upset about it. Right, for sure. Because that's a really good point. Well, I found that it became like really, really easy to slip down this path of great idea and then stumped. Mm-hmm. And you didn't know, I didn't have like the skills to be able to like that wall I built to climb around it or climb over it, walk around it. It's difficult and it takes a lot of time and just continually writing to figure out those little tricks that you learn to get you through it. I agree. And I also think it comes with, it all just kind of comes with time. Like I think people who, let's take somebody who already knows how to play guitar, but they haven't tried songwriting. They could probably figure out how to write a song pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. It just then has to do with how great is their taste and how much will their songwriting ability slowly be influenced by their taste until it becomes something they actually respect. Like we could all probably write like a Magic School Bus theme or something, you know what I mean? Or whatever. But I think it takes a long time to actually not just go, nice, I've got a verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus. I've got ones that I really think are interesting and sustain ideas and are not just like the minimum requirement. They actually continue to interest you as you write them. Does that make sense? Well, it does, especially listening to your body of work. What I found really lovely about it is that it had this minimalism to it, but it was it had a lot of imagery and you weren't married to like that. Okay, now we got to go to the chorus right away. Okay, now we got to do this.
you allow your music to breathe.
Yeah, definitely. I think part of it too is I don't have a band and I don't know how to play drums. So it's always going to sound a little more spare than the next artist or group or whatever. But, and also the tools you have totally influence the type of music you make, I think, 100%. And so that had to do with my minimalism. Is just up until this recent album, it was all self-produced by me. I did everything, and I'm not saying that bragging, because when you go back and listen, it is not high quality. Like the songwriting I'm proud of, but the recording, I truly didn't even understand. I knew barely enough to complete those last two albums. To like my roommate Ryan is a professional composer actually, and like songwriter, and he had to teach me like about the difference between mastering and mixing and like buses, all this terminology. I had no idea. People listening to those first two albums have no idea how ramshackle those were made. I'm just lucky I get away with the lo-fi aesthetic anyway.
It's very beautiful and it sounds on purpose. I also relate to you. I've always kind of been, and I'm getting way better. This podcast actually has probably been the best thing for my recording in terms of it's just more hours working with the different software and the tools. And I've had so many conversations with friends going, oh, I get it now. I get where you use a compressor. And then they look at the mix and they go, that's not where you use it. I'm like, I'm closer, right? And they're like, yeah, kind of. But
I know. Yeah. The number of times that Ryan had to be like, compression does not mean auto-tune. I was certain they were the same thing. But no, yeah, they're very different.
Well, and the thing too is that just like with songwriting, the recording process is, and it's always evolving, and you learn about one thing and then you apply that one lesson to every little piece of the music, and then you realize, oh, we should cut it back. Then you learn something else, and then you learn maybe a third or fourth thing, and all of a sudden you start to develop your palette, and then
totally.
And you look at like an engineer who's a professional who knows exactly what to do, almost as a mathematical science. And you may not be doing the same thing, but you'll start to see what they're doing. And all of a sudden you can take what they're doing and translate it to your music. And that's a big step. And the thing is, with continually recording music and just continually putting out output like you have in particular, is the evolution is just almost steps where each song, each movement gets better.
Yeah, that is an interesting thing that I've thought about. Like, I'm sure there's a whole generation, including me and you clearly, where if you listen to the beginning of their discography and move through, it probably is going to sound better quality as it goes, chronologically. That is 100% how it is for me. And like you said, yeah, you've been learning too, so I'm sure it is for you. That's such an interesting thing. By the way, can I bring up one random thing I thought about yesterday?
Okay, absolutely.
I want to hear your opinion on this. So prior to having like click tracks and stuff, people had other ways of keeping time, I'm sure, while recording. But now that stuff like Logic, which I use, and all those other things like Ableton and stuff are rampant, do you think that more songs are the exact same length because we're all adhering to the same click track? Obviously, the tempo can change to whatever you want, but think about the number of songs that are probably just like, 90 beats per second is the basic starter thing for this tempo, and the number of people who just put out songs based on that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there something to that?
There's got to be. It's got to be math related. I mean, also before click tracks, you also had to make sure that the record or the song fit on a record.
Yes, so true.
You were worried about the math, like a 45 fit a 3 minute and 30 second song.
Right.
I think now you have a situation where everything is on a meter, but there's also this whole new concept of pleasing the algorithm, and people are finding with Spotify the most. And I don't love this topic. I just think it's not a full expression of art if you're trying to figure out what the shortest duration people will listen to your music and adhering to
I completely agree. And I'm so glad that I don't need to like lie to you and say like, oh yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. It's definitely like fucked up. I think that's wrong.
Yeah. But it's hard. I'm working on a song right now where it has like a 45-second intro, which means that the song is 4 minutes and 10 seconds.
Right.
And it's like, wow, look at this symphony length song I wrote. And it's like, come on, it's just, I need that intro. It's what gives the song meaning. And I can't be worried about the number at the end of the day. It just would be untrue to the song.
I completely agree. People who are writing music to please the algorithm are in my opinion, basically not musicians. They're business people. They might be smart business people, but they are business people because they've made it into a business. Whereas like, I don't think that you were compelled to pick up a guitar because you'd make money.
No.
And that's why
but
yeah. Yeah. That's why I picked up a calculator. No, I'm kidding. No, I think it should just be about satisfying the compulsion that you clearly feel and I feel for songwriting.
At that same moment, I will say, I remember when I first started writing songs, I used the Tascam Porta Studio, which is just my portable little thing. And every song I wrote was 120 beats per minute. And every intro was 8 bars. Every verse was 4 bars. Every pre-chorus was 4 bars. Every double, second chorus was, and every song I was like, wow, 3 minutes and 30 seconds again. Like, I must be just like perfect. And then that math entered and I thought, oh goodness, okay, I got to start writing faster or slower songs, I suppose, or it's just going to look very weird on an album.
Very weird or very like monotonous. Yeah, exactly.
But also it made me think too, is it's like, am I just copying and pasting? Like, is anything that I'm doing overly interesting if I'm so fixated with this grid?
Exactly. I agree completely. Look, like something as simple as like keeping time and having a digital metronome or whatever. I'm not going to knock that because I have terrible time and that should be around for some people, right? That's fine. Mm-hmm. But it's when it happens like what you're saying, where it's just like, previous to working on a grid, you could say, I want a verse, chorus, etc. And those could be any length, but now but not based on the record size, like you mentioned, but you know what I mean? Now it's even more like on the grid. So I think what you did is like just a classic way when you start songwriting. I was the same way. I'm sure I looked at song lengths of Radiohead and been like, okay, I need to be 409 on the dot or whatever. Well,
and I also remember showing the first EP of my high school band I had an internship at a publishing house, it was my music publishing. And I remember we finished our EP, it was 5 songs. It was in a CD form. I was so excited. And I showed somebody there and he's like, do you want me to review this? And I was like, yeah. And in my head, I was like, and this is the moment that I signed the record label. I signed the big record deal. They all revere me. I'm the, even though there's thousands of CDs in this building, this that I'm bringing in is the best thing they've ever heard. And, and they played the first song. It was like a real up and down pop song. And it was 5 minutes long. And he just he goes, 5 minutes? Like, what are you doing? And he's like, there's no reason. And he just started cutting it up, chewing it up. And I was so emotionally upset. I kept it cool, but it was the 5th of 5 tracks. The bridge was the first time he said, oh, that's cool. Like he ripped it to shreds. And I really appreciate him for it because he was absolutely on the money. You sometimes do have to make a decision between, do you want a solo or do you want a bridge? Not both. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of juvenile experiences with the music. And I do appreciate the merit of a grid, of a meter, of getting to the point of, in the Tom Petty documentary, he discussed, don't bore us, get to the chorus.
Yeah.
And there is merit to all that. I think there's an absolute duality to it. But I've been producing a show on CIUT 89.5 FM, the radio station in Toronto, called Classical Underground.
Okay.
And in this week's show, there'll be 2 songs that are 35 minutes.
Right.
And they are, by Mozart, they're by Bach, Beethoven. These are, but the thing is that of the day, this was the major form of entertainment.
Exactly.
And it was not an issue to have a 35-minute song.
It's all context too, right? Like people are willing to, they already know classical music as being extended pieces of music, right? They know they're in for like a 15-minute thing or whatever. But if they hear, okay, it's a pop album, then they're probably expecting a 2 or 3 minute song, not a 5-minute song. So I think it's what you go into it expecting. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. So you're originally from Toronto?
Actually, I was born in Vancouver, Ladner specifically, if anyone listening knows that. But
you never know.
You never know, yeah. But after my dad got a job here when my sister and I were 6, so then we moved, and I've been here since.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah,
Did you, when you arrived at Toronto, was it culturally different than your life in British Columbia? Were you too young to remember, or? No,
it was definitely different. Like Ladner at the time was, so it's south of Vancouver, and is along that kind of delta where you need to travel out to take the ferry, if you've ever taken the ferry. Anyway, it's a lot of farms, a lot of flat land. Like I remember to get our Christmas tree, we just had to walk like 2 blocks, and there was a lot selling Christmas trees right there. And like, it was a very, for sure, like kind of, I don't know how to, somewhere between like rural and suburban, but still more in suburban for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But tons of fields and pumpkin patches and horse fields and stuff, which was cool. And then moving to Toronto, it was definitely way more suburban, kind of what everybody pictures, Range Rovers and pavement.
When did you first get into music? Do you remember what it was that gripped you initially?
I remember, well, I always remember liking music kind of, but definitely I started to notice stuff. I don't know what age this was, but I'm going to throw some songs here and then you can remember stuff. The first like Maroon 5 record, I remember, like She Will Be Loved, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hot Fuss, Meteora, Linkin Park. Oh man, there's another one that I had that just like, oh man, I'm not even necessarily listing stuff I like, although I like all that stuff in varying degrees, but Good Charlotte, like The Anthem, you know what I mean? Bands like that were sort of, Blink-182 were like the craze. And I remember going the other way, and my dad always had like old Led Zeppelin DVDs and whatever. I have a distinct memory of thinking my dad was watching like an action movie because it sounded like a war movie, and I went down and he was watching an extended Led Zeppelin like concert experience, but it just happened to be, to my like 10-year-old ears, extremely heavy like war.
Oh,
so
wow.
Yeah, from that point on, I was like pretty interested in Led Zeppelin, obviously. I mean, like bands like, I have no shame saying like I loved at least the first 10 years of like Coldplay. They were like, I don't know, it's partially because of my age, I guess. I still love that like aftermath of the Britpop era. I'm a huge sucker for it. So that's
Coldplay. I went to see Coldplay in 2015.
Yeah.
And it was very, I don't want to say it was the afterthought, but I went to see the opener with my friend who was part of their management team, and I had a car. So he was like, you want to go to the show? Could you drive me? It was in Buffalo. I was like, sure, okay.
Yeah.
And we went, and he said, we'll have a couple beers, we'll stomach our way through maybe half a Coldplay set. Yeah. By song 3, we both had our hands up in the air and we were jumping just like everyone else in that arena. It was so incredible. And
I mean, they're great. he's a great pop songwriter. Like, I feel like it's undeniable at this point. Personally, like, they ruled the 2000 to 2010. You know what I mean? It was like them and U2 and Beyonce.
Absolutely. And I also think too, like the experience of having the music du jour and the music from the 70s working together at the same time, like that's a very powerful duality of inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I definitely like old stuff, but I so don't like the faux, I truly am a folk hero. I don't know. There's something about it that rubs me the wrong way. I'm not going to pretend to be like a carpenter. You know what I mean? So, and I feel like also when you're pretending, or when you think you're of the ilk of the folk artists from like the early 70s and what you're referencing, it was so folk. Like their stuff was folk next to like English folk, which I personally don't really like. I think it's just generally the chord selection that I have really pulled from that era, as opposed to any of its politics or lyrical styles or anything like that, in my opinion.
Well, also that, like, if you're referring to the 1960s folk, which I think you are, that was also like punk rock at the time.
Yes, for sure. That's true. It was. Yeah, that's a very good point, which I guess now you maybe hip hop really is the new punk, in my opinion.
Yes, definitely. But I also think that it didn't age well.
Yeah.
Folk music feels very, and there's
yes,
people that really love it, and I appreciate it, and you, Alex, also appreciate it. But some of it is a little bit light or not very.
It's just like,
it's just
yeah. And the flower people come raining down, or whatever. It's
absolutely.
Like there's so much crap from that time and we've only just like extracted the best bits, as we do with literally like every last generation, right?
Yes, because we could talk about all that like hippy dippy folk music that doesn't stand the test of time, and then you get like a Peter, Paul and Mary, If I Had a Hammer, or
right, or just Bob Dylan, right?
Yeah,
like there are people who are out of time,
and it just works. And there's always been an argument for those artists not becoming as successful as they were in any other time, which, I mean, that's any artist. Like, could you say
I would agree.
Starting today would be big in 2020? But
yeah,
it did. And for some reason it worked.
Yeah, but exactly.
With those types of backgrounds, I mean, I don't hear Maroon 5 in your music. No, I'm just kidding. But with
what if I was like, what? Are you joking?
Wouldn't be the first. Hey, listen, you know what? Some of the most acclaimed guitar players that have been on this podcast started because they got Guitar Hero, the video game.
Wow, really?
Yeah, like multiple people.
That's crazy. Absolutely. I mean, that was a fun game. Don't get me wrong, but
fun game. But it also taught a lot of music, like a library of music.
That's so true.
You'd hear all these bands like The Police, you'd hear Frankenstein, and also these songs, no different than like a parent, like a parental figure or an uncle who's like, here, check out this cool band. The idea of like, here, check out this next level. Like you thought sending out an SOS was really cool. Check out this next level.
That's so true. And you know what else it reminds me of? It's a little bit like, can I ask how old you are?
32.
32. Okay. So I'm 27. So we're still of the same, very much of the same time. So Tony Hawk Pro Skater games had the best soundtracks, and they were like teachers. Like I can remember hearing some iconic bands through those games first. Do you know what I mean? Like
Motorhead, Ace of Spades.
Oh yes, exactly. Absolutely that one. And that was the opening thing, right? Oh my God. I haven't thought about that for like 5 years at least. Jeez.
Well, Tony Hawk, they've redone that game, just so you know.
Oh, my friends are talking about it. Trust me, I know.
And they did like a big homage to, I'm afraid if we go into another serious down, I'm going to do it. But I just know there's so many other things I have to do. I can't get into reliving my glory days of Tony Hawk Pro Skater. But
I know.
But you're right. Absolutely. Like, and for other artists too, like games like Final Fantasy were really influential. And there are artists, there's a band in Toronto called the Villainist. They use the Sega Genesis synth chip to produce all of their music, because those like chips are similar to specific synthesizers, and the limitations that they allowed created these genres of music that people are now exploring. It's called chiptune music, and it comes from kids playing Sonic the Hedgehog and just getting into those sounds and the music and paying homage to it with their own originals, just within that box of sound, in a sense.
That's pretty interesting to me. To me, that almost like comes full circle, and to me, that's like classical music to me.
Yeah,
that's almost more like classical music than making like hip hop beats or a song on your guitar. That's pretty interesting to me. I wonder what that sounds like.
It's really, I'll send you a link to it. It's really cool.
Yeah, you should, because I would imagine if there's are there people singing over it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So they write the music into a Sega Genesis console and play it, and then they do a live version of it.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It's heavy. Like, it's really good. But you get when you hear it, you're also like, I know this. Like, I know what it sounds. It's almost subconscious.
I believe that. Like, there are definitely some games where it's not like I flip on their soundtrack now, but I obviously like, what's one? Like Ocarina of Time, right? Like, everyone knows that stuff of our generation. So that's another example.
When you, or actually, I'll just ask the simple question. When did you decide to become an artist and write songs?
I definitely privately been writing songs since I was like 14. But it was all mostly like what you'd expect, early teenage garbage. And, you know, I don't remember any of it, to be honest with you, but it was reams of it. I did get practice. But that's not really when I decided to become a musician. I kind of did that and then kind of gave up on it for the majority of university. And then I went to UBC, back out in BC for university. But then coming back to Toronto after that, I don't know, I got to a point in my life where I was just like, a lot of other stuff was going on. And it was just kind of a point in my life, it was a fork in the road moment for me. And I decided I didn't want to regret not playing music when I so clearly have this compulsion in me, because I'm privately making it. Like, I don't think my voice is, this was me at the time. I was thinking like, I don't think my voice is terrible. I think I could work on that. I think the songwriting is not so bad. And so it just kind of grew out of that. And finally I kind of found my feet. It was late.
That's okay. There's no such thing as late. I think also with music, there's this like feeling that you have to be this prolific songwriter and uber successful, like, you know, by the time you're 12.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait till you hear what he does when he's 15, and then wait till you hear what he can do when he's 20. And I don't think that that's actually a honest telling of where your potential is. And I think that the age to success ratio, especially with music, is kind of an obscurity that kind of prohibits that let's go for it regardless mentality.
Yeah, that's true. I think you're right about that. It also, I don't know, it is and isn't important when you start. There are benefits. I have realized that there are benefits to starting later. Like, I'm glad 19-year-old me isn't sitting here doing this interview. I'm glad it's 27-year-old me. You know what I mean? You have I'm not saying 27 is old, but it's old compared to some musicians out there starting out right now. And I just feel like I'm definitely, maybe for all my faults, personal faults, more well-adjusted than the average 19-year-old might be for these same things. So I'm kind of happy about that. That's definitely a silver lining in my mind.
Yeah. But sometimes not being well-adjusted is a creative gold mine.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I tap into that all the time.
Well, it's what I enjoy about your sound is it's uniquely yours, and I really enjoy that. But was there a moment that pushed you over the edge where you decided, I'm gonna, for lack of a better term of word, go public with this?
Was there a moment that I decided that? It was just that fork in the road moment, I guess. And I just sort of, it was even to the point where I was nervous about telling my friends, like close friends that I'd had and lived with and had since I was 6. We'd known each other for 20 years, and I was still uncomfortable coming to them and wondering if they could ever perceive me well as an artist, or am I always going to be shoehorned into, you know what I mean? It was just a confidence issue.
Yeah.
And just once that fork in the road moment happened, I kind of was just like, well, what's the alternative? Living a life where you feel unsatisfied all the time? I don't want to feel that. So then the only other alternative is you got to do it. Even if you don't always enjoy that, you have to see it through. And that's kind of that's where I'm at right now.
You've been doing an open mic night at the Imperial Pub at Dundas and Yonge Street.
Yeah.
That's got to be, first off, what a unbelievable building in the city. There's so many amazing things that happen and have happened at that place. The best cheese sticks in the city, patio of all time. But to do an open mic and to host something of regular frequency, obviously not now you're doing it, but what has the experience been like to host and facilitate an environment for other artists?
That was really nice. I mean, selfishly, it began not just to facilitate other artists' growth, but was also for me to network and meet people, and you know what I mean? Because that's just undeniably a part of this. Mm-hmm. But it became, over time, this core group of probably like a revolving door of kind of maybe 20 people or 15 people. And it was the best because they'd come in and they'd bring their friends, and maybe it was their friends' first time going up, or it was just really cool to be the driving force behind an environment that everybody made so stress-free, you know what I mean? And embarrassment-free.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than going up and, there's nothing worse than going up and seeing that people actively are actively somehow apathetic. They're actively somehow apathetic towards your performance. You know what I mean? Like, just a little more respect I felt was needed in and around. I don't mean to knock the open mic community in Toronto. I had just been to a few and I felt like there wasn't a totally safe zone for people. And that's what led me to create it. And it's been very rewarding in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, especially creating a place that you feel safe allows you to maybe premiere a song that you're unsure of if it's finished or if it's not, but you can kind of allow your peers to hear it in the shape that it's in at that moment. And sometimes there might be a suggestion as to how to finish it, but also somebody could say to you as you're walking outside, just be like, hey, by the way, that new song's really good. And that might be the motivation for you, not only to finish that song, but to write 5 more.
Absolutely. That's exactly what has happened. Like, not for me. I'm not saying this happened to me. It's happened to a bunch of us at different times. Like, hey, I really like that bit, or I really like that song, or whatever. And it totally does spur you on. And it also makes you feel closer to these other people. The other thing too is I frequently, it would be some new people trickling in at the beginning before the usual crew came. And so I always had to go up. The idea is that everybody gets to play two, and it kind of just revolves until nobody's in the order, and then everybody just kind of is a free for all. Our gimmick thing is you can always go up and play the other instruments if you want, as long as the person whose two songs it is okay with that. So there's a house drum set, a house piano, a house bass, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing. Actually, that's fantastic. And when did you normally do this?
It was Tuesday nights at around 8 p.m. So I'd commute home, then grab my acoustic guitar and get there for sort of 7:30, meet the manager of the place, who's super nice guy, Sammy. And I would just kind of set the soundboard up and set the instruments up, and except drums. I could never do that. I waited until somebody came and could do that. But yeah, it was just the best. And I used to be so intimidated because at open mics often you were left to do the sound and plug in and blah, blah, blah. And so the one thing that was really a huge blind spot for me, just like Logic was, and editing and mixing and engineering, was how to play live. Like I never really played live. So then having to set up every night I wanted to do the open mic, set up the soundboard and set up all the instruments. It was a huge education that I wouldn't have got otherwise. It was like, there are so many reasons to set up your own little community thing. If anybody's listening and on the verge and doesn't have the confidence right now, I hope you listen to this and are like, following this host's footsteps here, follow in mine. It's set something up for yourself. It keeps rewarding you time after time. Do you know what I mean?
I do. And I will, when this is all over, when we're allowed to, I will meet you in person, ideally, Alex, at the Imperial Pub, cheese sticks and bass guitar in hand.
Okay.
And, I'm really looking forward to seeing that kind of experience, because those are just so special. And I have the reason why this podcast exists in small and large regards are not only big shows or albums or the experience of meeting artists and stuff like that. It was just that feeling that you get from putting a good night together. And
yes.
You just walk away and you're like, wow, that was just the best.
Totally.
What's next for you?
Man, as long as COVID is going on, I just continue to write music, basically. I don't know.
Do we have any more singles that we're going to hear from you soon?
Yes. Thank you for setting that up.
No problem.
I would have forgotten for sure. Yeah, I have another one. So this current one that's out that we were talking about at the beginning is called On the Dance Floor. Really happy with it. So happy with the strings that I got these guys from LA on. I don't know if you have time for another story, but
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you sure? Okay. So do you know Loveless? The album Loveless by My Bloody Valentine?
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay. And let me just make sure it is not like an emo punk band. It's the Irish, like alternative rock band from the late 80s, early 90s. Okay. Because my roommate always mixes those things up. Because is there a 2000s band from our early, what were they named? Bullet for My Valentine.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, so not them. Anyway, the seminal like shoegaze band, My Bloody Valentine. Anyway, they had an album called Loveless. It's a great album, but it's super heavy guitars. It doesn't sound anything like my music, obviously. And I was obsessed with reading reviews about it, as I am with any album I like. And I saw in one review that there was an all acoustic cover of the entire album. Someone had remade the whole album, but acoustic, and they described it as porchlit Americana, which definitely sort of rung my bell. And I sought it out, listened to it, became obsessed with it completely, then forgot about it, then found it again, and decided to reach out to the guy on Instagram who made it. Turns out he's in at LA in this band. He had a heroin addiction at the time, and that's why you never heard of him and all this stuff and whatever. But he's doing well now, and he's the guy who plays fiddle on the single that is out on the dance floor and also on the next one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a cool story. Kenny Feinstein he's a great artist. His band is Water Tower Band. Check them out. It's not like what I sound like. It's pretty bluegrass, but they're great musicians. Great musicians.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alex, for being on the podcast.
For sure.
Do you know when your next single will be out?
Yeah. So again, it's Caught You on the Throat, and it'll be out. November. The third Friday of November. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the date is, but
that's okay.
Okay, well.
Third Friday of November. I can do this.
All right.
Third Friday of November. Oh, well, we'll figure it out.
Wait, hold on. I want to see if you can get it.
I'm looking it up too.
Yeah. Okay, the 20th. 20th. Yeah. Okay, so November 20th.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex.
Thanks, man. This was fun.
So we'd like to follow up this episode because we recorded it a couple months ago and we have some new information with Alex. So we have Alex back today to talk about a new single that you're releasing.
Yeah, thank you. It's called Rosie. It comes out January 14th, and I'm really proud of it. It's, to be honest, one of the first songs that I wrote for the album specifically, and I'm really attached to its arrangement. It's my favorite part of it, so keep an eye out for that. And the album is called And the Country Stirred. And
that's fantastic. Again, I'm glad that you've been able to be so productive over, this extended lockdown.
Yeah. I'm lucky for that, to be honest. I'm just happy I've kept my job and everything like that. I'm just very fortunate.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to it. And then you have the whole album that comes out on February 5th.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the whole album is coming out then. It's got the 3 singles, obviously, or 2 singles that have come out so far, and Rosie. And it's 11 tracks. It's got a lot of fun little moments on it that benefit repeat listening, I guess.
Excellent. Well, we're very excited to hear that when it comes out in a couple weeks, and then the full album in a couple months.
Good. Yeah.
So for Alex Southey, I'm Michael McDonnell. Episode 118 of All About the Song is in the books. We will see you next week.